Hello, everybody. We're live. Welcome to Conscientious Omnivore. My name is Pal. Today, we're going to be having a nice debate discussion with a couple of guests. We've got inmendham on, and we also have Logan Blake on, and we're going to be talking about antinatalism and related topics. So the format's going to be Logan and inmendham are going to start, and then I'll kind of chime in at the end and have some questions and comments, and that'll be it. So I don't know who wants to start, but Logan?
Yeah. Well, I could start it off. So I watched some of your videos. I actually talked with some antinatalists before, and they kind of have different views on certain things. So I was just wondering if I could ask you a couple of questions just to get your position on things. Sound good?
Yeah, well, antinatalism's pretty clear. I don't think there's too much variety of perception. You're against procreation, so that's pretty obvious. But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. So thoughts on God? Do you think God exists?
Well, of course not.
So you don't like? Do you just think that, or do you have evidence, or?
Well, yeah, evolution's pretty obvious, and religion is a silly story. It's no more valid than a Three Bears story or any other silly story. I don't believe in Santa Claus. I don't believe in the Easter Rabbit. And I don't believe in fucking gods.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So not like specifically, oh, you believe in like, the Christian God or whatever, but like you don't really know if
Yeah, no,
there is
I
like
know.
a
I know there's no
collective.
Santa Claus because I know it was made up. I know there's no fucking God because it's a made up story. There's no reason to believe an intelligent designer made this planet. You wouldn't be wearing whatever pink sunglasses and your hat backwards if a God made the world.
Yeah, I'm just wondering like how you came to that conclusion like with no evidence though.
I didn't know this subject was I'm not a retard. Yes, I'm not a retard. I don't believe in extraterrestrials. I don't believe cartoons are real. I don't believe Bugs Bunny really lives in LA. I don't believe the Flintstones actually lived in primitive times and made cameras out of monkeys. I don't believe in nonsense. Yes.
Okay, so you don't believe there's life anywhere outside of this planet either?
Well, you want me? I see. Again, the subject is supposed to be antinatalism. If you want me to explain biology to you, I will. Okay, but biology works this way. Okay, through evolution, there's a bunch of one-time events that took place. Okay, the cell basically consuming another cell to create the nucleus. It only happened one time. Neurons only happened one time. There's no other cellular device or mechanical device used for thinking in biological organisms, but a neuron, one specific kind. The DNA molecule that we're made out of is a specific DNA molecule. There's no other DNA molecule with one changed amino acid or with some other chemistry. One time for 4 billion years, we're sitting here in a junkyard covered with biology, okay, literally covered with dead corpses. All right. And not one variant ever survived. So I'm just saying the odds of intelligent life in the universe is probably insanely, absolutely 5 Yahtzee dice stacked on top of each other with the same number. Okay. Are in order 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and all stacked on top of each other. What do you think the odds are of rolling that? Okay. You could probably spend an eternity or for a double eternity or whatever, a triple eternity, and you're never going to roll that. So I'm just saying, yes, there's probably, then I can give you the factual evidence where the rest of the universe is older than we are, much of it. And if there was another intelligence in the universe that had billions, perhaps years of a head start on us, and it would have somebody, if they had a civilization, they would have made a mess by now. They would have made noise and pollution, and we'd be able to see it.
Yeah, so the reason why I asked, like, I think it has everything to do with antinatalism, is that to me, I don't think these things have been proven yet. Like, is there an afterlife? Is there some form of, whatever out there? Like, nobody nobody knows for sure if there's life anywhere else, right?
So
Like
you
we
would
can only see
so
so far.
you wouldn't convict any murderers then, because there's absolutely never absolute 100% proof of anything. Okay, we
No,
can
but
never
there's
be absolutely 100,000,000% sure of anything. The
yeah.
standard is reasonable doubt, okay, to make reasonable decisions that we have to make in our life. So I'm just saying there's absolutely no positive reason to hold out for Santa Claus. There's just no reason to do that. Anybody who does that is just blowing their brains up.
Yeah, I just think there isn't a certain amount of evidence that you need to have before you come to a conclusion. And like sterilizing the entire planet is a pretty big conclusion to jump to with the amount of evidence that we have right now.
Okay, then never get any therapy for your cancer. Never make a decision in your life, because you're never going to be absolutely certain it's the right thing to do. So don't do a damn thing ever. Okay, never act. I mean, this is just so unrealistic. If you saw somebody drowning or something, or your wife was drowning, there might be a 50-50 chance you'll get killed trying to save her. And then now you're just making it a double tragedy. Okay, yeah. Is that going to change the fact that you're going to make the goddamn decision? You're going to do what you need to do, okay, to have the best solution. You're not going to sit on your ass and watch you're not going to watch Adolf Hitler take over the world because, I can't figure out whether he's like maybe his brother who might take over if I don't kill him. Well, maybe he'll be even worse. And but you're not going to waste your time doing that bullshit. You're going to figure out that there's something that needs to get done, and you're goddamn going to do it. And that's what I'm going to do with my life. I'm going to act. I'm not going to sit on my ass and watch shit happen that I could have prevented because I couldn't be 100% sure.
Yeah. So I'm not asking for 100% certainty, like, because there's only four things that's ever been proven in existence. Like, I'm at least asking for like scientific consensus or something before.
There's no 50-50 chance Santa Claus exists. There's no 50-50 chance God exists. There's no 50-50 chance the universe has a purpose. There's some magical singularity or some other kind of bullshit. We're biological organisms. We're fucking green slime wearing our fucking hats on backwards. Okay, jackass? You're not a brilliant creation. You're a piece of fucking consuming shit. We live in a shithole full of selfish motherfuckers. The world sucks because people suck, not because of any other reason. So quit pretending you're some magical maggot. You're a shitty little cruddy worm, all right? Puke. That's what you are. You're a fucking bucket of puke. You're not magical.
Okay, Amanda, I thought this was a debate.
Yeah, okay. Like you realize ad homs are not arguments, right? Like I'm trying to have a debate, and you're just having an ad hom fest over here.
Fucking debate. The subject is antinatalism, and you're talking fairy stories. I don't believe in any fairy stories. If that means to you, okay, he's a wacky fanatic. He acts without doing any rational judgment. No, as a kid, I figured out there wasn't any fucking God, and I've never spent any time since then worrying about, well, what if God really exists? He'll be all upset that I tried to destroy his wonderful Frankenstein monster. Fuck that.
Okay, so how do you plan on destroying it? Is my next question.
Again, it's really not the subject, but another scientific fact that most people don't know is that you can make a nuclear bomb as big as you want to. Okay, they don't get any weaker as you go bigger. All right, the payload increases, not decreases. So quite obviously, you put a couple of nukes in the continental shelf or a couple of magical little places, and guess what? You can mess up planet Earth pretty darn good.
All right. So the last guy I talked to, he said he's going to go out into nature and sterilize every animal. So at least that's a little better than that answer.
Obviously, an instantaneous death is pretty good if you're going to destroy something. So I'm just saying, if somebody sneaks up behind me, shoots me in the back of the head with a 44 caliber bullet, I'm not going to know the difference. It's really going to be hard to say somehow I'm harmed. The only thing that could possibly get harmed is my agenda, whatever that might have been in my life. But it would be ludicrous to say somehow, oh, how horrible. Look at all that suffering. Oh, wait a minute. There wasn't any suffering.
So how much evidence do you actually need before you make a conclusion on something?
Well, again, I think there's all the evidence is on one side. There's absolutely zero evidence on the side of deliberate creation or fundamental purpose or the fact that evolution is somehow a benign infestation. Okay. Nature kills. It kills for everything that exists. Have you ever just thought about it for a minute? Like, think about like a sea turtle. 10,000 baby turtles with the same brain capacity as the adult, okay, are murdered. Okay, very short, brutal life, eaten alive, and all pecked to death. All right, to have one mature turtle. Now, if you had to kill those 10,000 baby turtles, would you do it to have the one adult turtle? Would you do it? Would you kill 10,000 for every mature mating?
Haven't really thought about that. Like
Okay, well, lion cubs. Think about it with any other organism. 10 lion cubs tormented. You first scare them, torment them. All right, hang them over a pit of hyenas and watch the terror. Okay, would you be willing to do it? Just like the meat eaters out there who just let somebody else do their killing. All right, nature kills, and it kills mostly children, and it kills them brutally. It's nothing to use as an excuse. You don't go and say, well, the mass murderers are doing it, so why can't I? I mean, you obviously don't use Bundy as an example and say, well, Bundy killed people, why can't I kill people and torture them? Torture's great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so my basic position is I understand there's, an immense amount of suffering and there's also, joy and whatever, but like you don't really have a lot of evidence to make a solid conclusion. So I'm like kind of happy at this point not knowing until we find more of a better answer of what actually the universe is about. I don't think you really have the answers.
The better answer you're waiting for is what? I'm just saying we have a ton of evidence about what the universe is doing, the physical fact that it's deterministic. We're just programmed robots. There's no evidence that people magically play the piano unless they practice playing the piano. We sort of understand how this fucking thing works. We're just biological organisms, horny for a built-in agenda. We're competitive. We're selfish. These things don't need to be rethought through. There's a ton of evidence for the fact that our lives are just about an addiction, and it's not about anything else. Okay, this is just heroin addict. You're saying, well, we haven't figured out whether being a heroin addict is stupid and retarded. Maybe it has some redeeming value and maybe it's worthwhile. Well, I have plenty of evidence to say, no, it's a waste of biological existence. And so are all our addictions. They're just the same damn thing. Our bigotries are just as stupid. And so why pretend that you're accomplishing something when there's absolutely no evidence that you are?
Okay, yeah. Well, I would just say that there's no evidence yet. But, I mean, also...
So, again, you're holding out. You're just going to hold out forever. So you'll never act, just like they'll say, look, there's no proof that Hitler's killing Jews. There's no proof that the concentration camps really exist. That's all hype and propaganda. Oh, yeah, so he's a racist and he's a little bit nasty. But no, there's no proof. There's no evidence. We'll just sit on our hands and wait.
Okay. So do you think it's kind of appealing to the unknown when you say, like, things are just going to get worse? Because you have no idea. Things are just going to get worse or they're going to get better. I don't think
things are necessarily going to get worse for certain humans. I mean, certain humans have it much better. They have morphine and they have lots of stuff that they didn't have a few hundred years ago. So a lot of humans have it a lot better. Some people are going to get lucky and they're going to drop dead of a massive heart attack. And so they'll be able to rape and pillage their whole life and they'll get off easy and they won't have to die a couple of times from cancer, like the average person might have to do. So I mean, but the point is you have no right to impose it in the first place. You're the Dr. Frankenstein. You're the one saying you have the right to impose life. You're competent creator. So you're going to take the little kid and you're going to put him on the tightrope and there's daggers down there. That he makes one mistake and it could be catastrophic. All right, you know that he could be a serial killer in the future. You know he could be an exploitionist, a rapist. He could be all kinds of rotten, lousy, stinking things. Or he could be the victim of some other rapist and pillager. So you're setting this up for a disaster. You're saying you know it's worth doing. How the hell do you know that? Where did you get this crystal ball that tells you you're certain that you can take care of it? That if the kid is tormented and has a life of alcoholism and debauchery, that somehow you got the magic pill that makes his pain go away, or the pain of his wife, or the pain of his kids? Where you're the one with the aggressive posture, I'm the one being risk averse. I'm saying I don't have enough evidence that I have control, that I have the capacity to fix when it goes bad, that I can clean up this freaking mess. I'm the one saying, don't play with the fire. You're the one saying, fire's fun until you prove it isn't.
I think we're both kind of guessing, right? So at least I'm admitting, though, that I don't know. You're guessing that your solution is the way.
What's the guess? What's the guess? You're saying that you don't know that you can't control the fire if it gets out of control. You don't know what a forest fire is. You're saying that's not a real possibility, that you could have a kid and his life could suck. You don't think that's a possibility.
Yeah, but you're appealing to the possibility that his life could suck.
Of course, I'm appealing to the fact that it's a fact that you can't fix it. If it does go wrong, you've got no insurance policy. You've got no insurance policy for ALS. You've got no insurance policy for leukemia. You've got nothing. You've got no way to pay the kid back if he says, oh, thanks a lot for creating me in this fucking pigsty. You fucking idiot. You lay eggs on fucking shit, and then the shit falls on me, you dumb cunt. My parents had no excuse. Their only excuse was to say everybody else was doing it, and I got them to admit it. But they didn't have any excuse because they didn't think about it. They didn't even think about it.
Okay, so if you look throughout history, right, obviously, like, people have figured out more and more things. You don't think it's absolutely possible that they could have some form of, not utopia, but at least a place where people are leaving like a not so much of a carbon footprint. And, even if you were just like to live off of trees in a permaculture.
How does that save the sea turtles? How does that fix the ocean where the smartest thing swimming around is a great white shark? Okay, if you take the mammals out, the things that were on land. That's what evolution did. In 4 billion years in the ocean, what did evolution create? It creates monsters that eat monsters. You want to glorify that and say it's a wonderful thing. And I love the idea of laying millions of eggs so millions of your children can die in the first day of their creation. Again, another example, one of the smartest animals in the ocean is the octopus, another organism in which some species lay 10,000 eggs. 10,000 babies killed.
Yeah, so what you're doing, you're taking like the worst of the worst. You're taking out what's called a biased sample. You're saying, well, the sea turtles, well, Hitler, the Holocaust. You're naming all the worst things.
Give me the counter example. Lions. I'll give you gorillas. I'll give you every single example. I'll give you human beings before we got our little fake technology to fix everything. 9 out of 10 of their kids died. 9 out of 10. That's acceptable to you. You would live a life. If you killed 9 out of 10 of your kids, you'd say, I did a good job. You'd say, I was a successful human being. I killed 9 out of 10 of my fucking kids. I'm a winner. Name one freaking organism. Name one organism on this planet that's winning, you cunt. Before you tell me I'm cheating the argument. I'm not cheating the argument. You're cheating the argument by pretending there's some magic that fixes it. You can't fix other people's catastrophe with your glib smiles. Your glib little happy notions do not compensate for other people's pain or the animal's pain. You fucking superficial glib piece of shit.
Hey, inmendham, I'm going to just warn you again. I think you're being a little bit way over the top here.
Fuck yourself in the ass, jackass. I'm not playing this fucking argue with Happy the Clown. I'm not arguing with some jackass who doesn't understand.
You're not making arguments.
And you can't fix it, fucker. You're a glib, reckless
These aren't
puke.
Arguments.
You're a
these
glib,
are ad homs.
reckless puke. Oh, that's not an argument. You're a glib, reckless puke. Look at you, you jackass. You can't address anybody with a fucking mature response. Why are you wearing sunglasses at 12 noon?
I think so
Why
far
do
the only person who hasn't been mature is you, because you're not even letting him finish his sentences.
This guy,
You've just been jumping in. You've just been jumping in and not even letting him finish oftentimes.
He's not
And he
making
hasn't
a
interrupted
fucking
you yet at all.
argument. He's making the argument of a fucking 10-year-old. These aren't arguments.
He's trying to understand your position.
He hasn't. I'm not here to explain my position. He wanted to debate. That means he's supposed to know something about biology. He's supposed to know something about science. He's supposed to know that religion is retarded. If he can't come to the fucking floor having any knowledge about anything except how to be a cartoon character, what the fuck would I waste my time with this nonsense for? Fuck you.
Well, you got no evidence for anything.
Exactly.
You
what
have no
you
evidence.
deserve. Get
You're
what
heated
you
up. You're heated up. Oh, he left. Ray.
Man, that's really a shame, because I actually had many things that I wanted to ask him.
I didn't even get a chance to insult him back, and he left.
Yeah, but you're the better man for it. So for the audience, I know a lot of people are there. I would actually like to state my position on it. And Logan, I think you have some stuff that you still wanted to say. So if anybody wants to stick around, I'm happy to kind of discuss this without inmendham, and maybe he'll, rage comment afterward on the video. But that was incredibly immature. I was actually looking forward to talking to him, and this was actually very disappointing.
I had some follow-up points, but I just wanted to know what kind of evidence that he had that there's no life anywhere in the universe, and how does he know all this stuff? He didn't really provide evidence.
Well, his evidence is a lack of evidence to the contrary, and that's actually a very dangerous thing to assume. Logan and I were talking before we started about the black swan as a concept. And if anybody hasn't read that book, I would recommend it. It's written by a guy called Nassim Taleb. And he starts off the book by telling a story about how up until whatever it was, I don't know, the white colonialists went to Australia, they had assumed and just known for a fact that all swans are white, like mature swans are white. And they base that fact on the fact that you've seen like tens and thousands or however many of them all your life, and every single one of them is white. So you have no evidence to the contrary that there's a black one. And in Australia, they actually have black swans. And when the white people went down there and they saw that, it was this kind of like shocking thing. And this is exactly his argument. It's like, I haven't seen a black swan yet, therefore I know for 100% certainty, or at the very least, like certainly enough that it's worth killing everything on the earth because I haven't seen one yet. So I don't know that God exists. I haven't seen any proof that he does. And okay, that's fine. Like, there is no proof. And Logan's point, if I understand it right, is simply that, yeah, you don't have any proof to the contrary either. So you can't state that it's true. Is that right? Yeah.
Exactly. What's I mean, I know this isn't an argument, but why is that guy so angry? What's up with that guy?
I think he explained why he was angry. His parents admitted to him that they didn't even think about why they would want to have him. That's the answer. That's why he's angry.
I don't know. It's absurd. It's absurd.
It's sad.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I wanted to. It's too bad you didn't get to say your points, because, like, I mean, this is the thing about, like, his viewers, right? Like, he's calling me a clown. I'm sitting over here being totally, like, I didn't raise my voice. I had decent questions. I didn't even get to the arguments. I was just seeing what his position was. And then the dude just starts screaming, going, yeah, you effing cunt, blah, 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 blah. I mean, yeah, like, viewers are going to eat that up because it's funny, right? Yeah. But it's not smart. He's not a smart guy. People are like, this guy's a smart guy. That nobody does that who's a smart guy. I've never seen a smart guy do that before. That's a clown for sure. Like, I was laughing the whole time, but yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I wanted to ask him about how, so there's this guy, I think his name is David Benatar. He wrote, like, I guess, the book on antinatalism. And I did a bunch of research on him and kind of tried to figure out his logic. And for anybody who hasn't, checked into it, like, I hope I'm summarizing it correctly. And this is why I actually wanted to ask him if this is the way he understands it too. The case that he makes is that, on the one hand, you have the person who exists, and this person will inevitably experience some suffering and pain in their life, because no life is perfect. Nobody has no suffering. So that's a bad. And then they have some good that they have, like most people at least have some positive in their life, some happiness and joy, then that's a positive. So you have kind of like a negative and you have a positive. On the other hand, you got the person who never existed. And so they never experience any pain, never experience any suffering. So that is a net good because they didn't experience the pain. And then they say that the fact that they don't get to experience any joy is because they don't actually exist. That means that's a net neutral, because like there was nobody to miss not having the joy. And my comment to this is that it's a logical fallacy. You're using the one hand to say like the person doesn't exist, therefore their suffering is good because it like somehow is a positive that they didn't suffer. But by that same token, the fact that they're missing out would be a negative on the positive things. Or if you want to look at it the other way around, it would be the other way, that like both of those should either come out the same as in the case that they existed, or they should come out as both neutral, because you're talking about somebody that never existed. So there is no pain to be experienced. So the fact that it didn't happen isn't a positive. It's just a neutral. Just like the fact that the joy didn't happen, it's a net neutral. So on the one hand, where the person didn't exist, the best case outcome is a total neutral. It's a zero. It's a zero sum. There was no positive, no negative. So my argument is that with as bad as the world is, regardless of how bad it is, and regardless of how bad it can get, even if it is getting worse, you still have some good in there. So you can have like 99% bad, but you might have 1% good. That 1% good is still more than the neutral here, which is like zero. So you have zero here and you have one here. And I would argue, and I think Logan would argue, that most people, anybody who's watching this, you probably have a lot more than 1% good like in your life. If you have like internet and electricity and like clean water and food to eat, like, I mean, you're doing a lot better than most things. So I would, I kind of wanted to ask him about where he would, stand on that. And Logan, I don't know if you want to say anything to that kind of.
I had my own way I was going to go with that, but it would have been a lot better to, I don't want to say all my arguments now, but yeah. It would have been a lot better to go on with the debate. I mean, like, here's the thing too, like I said, at the very beginning, like, what's your evidence? And to just yell about Santa Claus, like, when I was 4, I knew that Santa Claus didn't exist. Like, that's not an argument. That's not evidence of nothing. You're just yelling and being crazy. So
and as much as he's saying there's no God, if I understand correctly, again, this antinatalism viewpoint, that you're creating the harm by bringing a non-existent person into existence. What is that non-existent person? Are they a soul? Are they a spirit? Like, what are they? They don't exist. You haven't harmed anybody by bringing some living being into existence, because before that they didn't exist. So you haven't done any harm just by bringing them into existence. Now later on they will experience harm for sure. I mean, everybody experiences harm and pain, but again, intent matters. And if I understand again his position, he's saying it's immoral to do this because you know that they're going to suffer, but the intent matters. If you get in your car and you know that it's a well-running car, you've maintained it well, there's no like problems with it mechanically, you're not drunk, you get in it and you drive and you have a horrific accident because, I don't know, your tire blows up in a turn and you roll the car and you kill somebody on the sidewalk. That's an accident. You didn't do anything immoral by getting in the car and driving. You have a reasonable, like he was saying, you have a reasonable doubt to think that you will be fine driving that day because you've checked your car and it's in good condition and blah, 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 and you're not drunk. And the same way, like somebody in a developed area of the world where, birth rates are, really good, like in the sense that, you have 100,000 births and, 2 or 3 kids die out of that. Like, you have a very good, reasonable doubt that your kid will live to maturity. I don't think it's like rolling the dice. It's not like you're doing the same odds as the octopus laying the 10,000 eggs or whatever he was saying. He's conflating 2 things that are not the same. The animals don't have moral agency. We do. There's nothing wrong about a lion eating a zebra. like that's what he's supposed to be doing. He doesn't have moral agency. It's not wrong. So I don't know why he's conflating those things.
If you look at what I did, I didn't even make one argument. All I did was ask questions, right? So it's like the guy got mad at his own answers to questions I was asking him. Like I wasn't even making arguments. Even when he asked me one question about turtles, and I said, I don't know, I never thought about it. I didn't make a single argument, and it's kind of like I wasn't really. I kind of agree, right, that the world is suffering, that there's tons of suffering in the world. My position is I'm not really sure what the answer is yet. So it'd be nice to discuss it or debate it, right? So it's kind of like what I'm thinking is my conclusion would be like right now you kind of just have to do what's reasonable. So vegans know like animal agriculture is wrong, but then they've had discussions further than that go beyond that, like say, about animal rights and all these other things and diet. And those are like future discussions, right? So the first step would be obviously getting everybody on board to get rid of animal agriculture. So if you're going to look at antinatalism, like this isn't an argument. This is not an argument against antinatalism. I'm just saying you have to look at what's reasonable. Nobody's going to hop on board and be like, let's nuke the planet. Right? Like, good luck convincing everybody to nuke the planet. So what are the steps now that you should be taking? Well, the first things that you should be taking to reduce suffering would be like depopulation, veganism, teaching people about ethics, how to deal with suffering, like Buddhist teachings, like, suffering comes from desire, and getting everybody to like try to be happier. And then the more understanding and knowledge and science you have, the more you could help everything out. And that's what I was trying to get at is like, we need to figure out things more before you can make a solid conclusion, like let's nuke the planet. And then on top of that, nobody's even going to get on board with that. That was my point.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And I'm not sure, but I'm reading from the comments here that inmendham is a vegan. I was kind of pretty certain about that just from watching a bunch of his videos, because he does mention the suffering of animals quite a bit. So I'm fairly certain he is vegan, and some of the people in the comments are actually just confirming that. So, I think he gets a lot of stuff. Like I actually agree with a lot of what he's saying, and he's saying, in some of his videos that I've watched, like he goes into explaining about kind of like, what you have as like a moral responsibility to do, from the fact that you do see suffering, and it is our kind of responsibility collectively to go, and individually as well, to go and try and clean up the mess, to go and try and help people and stop their suffering. And I would wholeheartely agree with that, and to do that for non-sentient animals as well. But again, like somehow saying that like nature is somehow, evil or something. I mean, that's like evil is like the human concept that we have, like from our moral agency. Like we've created that concept. The lion is not doing anything evil by eating the zebra. I wouldn't, I wouldn't fault the lion for that. And, who knows, like long term, like, if instead of trying to concentrate on killing all life on Earth, like maybe, I don't know, like with technological advancement, like who knows, maybe at some point you can make like the fairy tale of the Zootopia cartoon, as much as inmendham didn't want to believe in fairy tales, like where the animals all get along and, they eat a plant-based diet. Like who knows? Like, just like we can evolve and change and get, knowledge. And he's talked about this in some of the videos I've watched, where he says like humans have, brought up their level of understanding through collective knowledge and all this kind of stuff. Like you just don't know, going back to the black swan example, just because somebody hasn't thought up some solution to the problems on Earth yet, doesn't mean that they won't going forward.
Yeah, that's the thing a lot of people do, is like they just kind of think that they have animals figured out and they know what's best for them, and like nobody's able to hop inside any animal's brain and actually see how they feel and think and what they go through during a day, right? So that's obviously a thing that people should have a better understanding of before we start knowing what's best for sea turtles and
we don't know what they think or feel when it comes to these kinds of things. And Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, I just think for a lot of the videos I've seen where he talks about kind of this like DNA, I think to him, like the DNA and the evolution is God. Like he's said in several videos that I've watched that basically it's this like DNA that's running this like big meat grinder and lab science experiment gone awry that basically is like torturing all these animals to try and get evolution to perfect the DNA strand further. And it's like he's attributing some kind of like will or some kind of I don't know, yeah, like I guess will or like a desire to the DNA strand, to the evolution. It's exactly like believing in God and thinking that God is putting us through these torments to say that we're going to become better people from it.
Yeah, and that's the thing I asked him at first, like the very first question, does God exist? Because it could be a number of things. It's not, I'm not just saying like, oh, God as in a guy on a cloud, waiting for people to go to heaven, or Santa Claus, whatever he's getting at. It could be anything. It could be
the DNA strand.
Yeah, it could be the DNA, could be collective consciousness, could be, things that people have not even figured out or thought of yet. Like there's people figuring out things every day. And to just assume is wrong. And then he's saying that I am assuming that I'm knowing from like having kids or whatever, right? But like I'm not, like that's the way it's already set up. I'm not changing anything. Right. So he's the one who's trying to change the way things are. I'm not saying that I know and I should be changing things. Like this is like, I'm going by my instincts, like, and I'm going by, collective thoughts and all the things that other people go by. He's just saying that I've got this figured out and I don't think he has sufficient evidence. And that was my point.
Yeah, I think you made it really well. And I think that's why he didn't like it.
Yeah.
That's probably why he got it so upset. Another thing that I think is really interesting is this idea that he's saying nobody gets harmed by him getting shot in the back of the head and dying instantaneously. First of all, he might not die instantaneously. Like people have gotten shot in the head and had horrific injuries and survived. So that's kind of ridiculous. But even if it were the case that he died instantaneously, he's saying there's no harm. Like maybe this also addresses the fact that he's so miserable. Like, does he not have a single person who would care about him? Like. Yeah. Who would be like devastated by the fact that he got killed?
Yeah, like, that's the idea. That's why he's saying. Yeah, that's why he's saying though the idea is to nuke the whole planet, right? Because then it just wipes everything out, and then nobody cares about anything. Then it's just gone. So like I watched a video actually yesterday about it. They talk about if you had the ability to go back in time and destroy that very first cell that caused the creation of everything, would you do it or not? All right, that's kind of like the nuclear bomb.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I wonder also, like I want to do some more research on it because it sounds kind of improbable to me that you would actually be able to get enough, nuclear fissible material together to make a bomb big enough to blow up the whole world. I don't know. That sounds kind of like impossible to me. And if it's not enough to blow up the whole world and like basically disappeared or like just literally vaporize the whole thing, which I'm pretty sure it's not, then it can still be argued that like you would have some really microscopic, maybe bugs or microbes or maybe even just one single cell organisms left that somehow survived in the depths of the ocean or under the earth. And who's to say that a couple 100 million years would go by and we would end up in the same place we were? Like, yeah.
So I've actually had a lot of conversations about this already, and that's why like he just thought like I was just some kind of joke. And he's like, oh, your pink sunglasses, whatever. But a better idea from a guy named Thaddeus Walker. I don't know if you've talked to him before.
I haven't talked to him. I watched some of the videos where you guys did stuff together.
He says you should try to figure out how to drag the Earth into the sun. That's way better than blowing it up, because then there still might be rocks, fragments or whatever, right? With life on it that could come back or something. But if you try to drag it into the sun,
it's going to get melted and destroyed. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and the other thing is that eventually the sun is going to explode, right? So like unless we get to the point that we can go off to other planets and escape from this solar system, like the sun is going to expand and engulf, like I think pretty much the whole the whole bunch of planets close to it. So I don't know how far they say that would go out. So I don't know if like you went to Pluto, if that's enough. I think you have to go maybe till around there, but like, so like, it's kind of like a moot point. Like at that point, if people don't get their stuff together and try to figure out something anyway, like we're all going to be gone regardless. And if he's just worried about the suffering of the non-existent people yet, I mean, it's the equivalent of the punishing people for thought crimes. It's like, I'm gonna put you in jail because like I know that 2 years from now you're gonna look at some woman walking by and like rape her. It's like what? Like no, like that hasn't happened yet. Like I can't punish you for something you haven't done yet. And I think that's his stance, that it's immoral that like you would have a kid, even though the kid has had no harm yet, that's somehow your fault that they may have harm in the future.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a little crazy. That's the famous Stephen Hawking lecture where he talks about, people need to figure out space travel in order for the human species to keep living, because they're eventually going to need to find life on other planets, or else they're going to die, right? So, and that's probably why they're doing all this Mars stuff right now. Same idea, because they have an idea. The government and these really smart people out there, they figure out stuff before everybody else. That's why everybody like Bill Gates is investing in plant-based companies, because they know that's not sustainable. They know they need to figure out space travel, and you should just look to what these people are doing, and that's probably they're not doing it for no reason.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's probably, it's a selfish reason though too, like to be like, we need to keep living forever. Like, could be a little bit selfish, but who knows?
I mean, it absolutely is. And I think, some of his arguments in Mendham's, I think, are valid in the sense that I think a lot of people do have kids for totally selfish reasons. He just admitted his own parents sort of did too, although they didn't really think it through, which is maybe even worse. But I would say that, like, yeah, even if you have kids for purely selfish reasons because you think it's like, I don't know, going to make you happy or whatever, or because you want a little mini me that you can control and like, meld into what you want. Like, even if it's purely selfish, I mean, most people, even of that type, would not purposely cause harm to their child. Like, you're still going to want to do good for the kid, even though you're doing it for selfish reasons. Like, you're still not going to intentionally harm the kid. So again, there's, it's the morality of driving the car. Like, the intention matters. Like, you have the kid, you have the kid with the good intention of having a good life for it. Where I would kind of agree with him that there might be some kind of moral imperative to potentially not have a child is if you're living in a part of the world where like it's incredibly difficult and there's like war and famine and whatever. And then if you said like, look, it's immoral to have a kid here because every third person on the street is getting shot by a drug cartel or whatever, like that, I could kind of, be more susceptible to agreeing with him, even though I would say I still wouldn't think it's necessarily immoral, because that person who's having a kid in that environment is again probably doing it maybe as misguided as they might be, with the intent that like somehow their kid is going to get out of that. Maybe they're going to flee the country, maybe they're going to somehow, some ways, something's going to happen. And that I could see where he's angry about that, because like that's just wishful thinking. Like, okay, I mean, I could kind of see that, but like for the majority of the people, basically anybody who's watching this, that's probably not the case.
Yeah. One of the things too, like when I was looking this up, they say that once you start thinking this way, like how everything, like I was saying, everybody's not going to be on board with you right away. But what happens is people start thinking this way about how, oh, we shouldn't be here and we're just causing harm and all these things. And a lot of these people get really depressed. And a lot of them do come to the conclusion that people are better off dead. So that creates like, hopelessness and depression. And there was even something about like omnicidism or something about killing people and things like that. Like maybe it is just a harmful thing to think about. I know that I've, even thinking about all this stuff over in my head, like the past couple days, planning for this debate, it's depressing. It's a very depressing subject. And, if like all these people are just going around like, oh, life is meaningless and blah, blah, blah. I don't think that leads to less harm. It might eventually lead to more harm of like people going around, doing who knows what.
Well, and in his example, the nuking the planet, he didn't even say that the whole planet would be destroyed. He said you would do major damage. Well, and think about, again, if let's say there were just a few people left, think of the suffering that they would be feeling, knowing that almost everybody got killed and they're going to probably die a slow, painful death from the radiation poisoning or something. You know, I mean, like, it's like he's worried about the potential harm that may, or even, let's say, likely will happen to people who don't exist yet. But he's ignoring the pain that you would be causing the people that do exist, and getting rid of the actual pleasure and joy that people who do exist feel. And he's also making incredible like assertions about the majority of people. Like, I think, you know, a well-adjusted person probably would be grateful for their life. I mean, I know it's anecdotal and I wouldn't have used this as an argument towards him, but just like, you know, from my personal life, like if I had just died today, I mean, I would be happy that like I got this much. Like I would be fine with what I had. I've had some tough stuff. I mean, I know I have it really good compared to like the majority of people in the world probably, but like I wouldn't think like the suffering I've had or the pain I've had is like, you know, makes me want to feel like I wish I had never lived. Like,
yeah. If you look at the guy's attitude, like you think like the whole concept of wanting to not have people suffer and not have suffering in the planet, and then the way he talks to people, it's like you don't sound like a caring person, right? Yeah. You don't sound like you don't have a James Aspie caring tone about you being like, I'm trying to make everything pleasant for people and make everybody happy. He's like calling everybody cunts. It's like, I don't know. It's just, it doesn't seem like they go hand in hand. Again, it's not an argument against antinatalism, just something I noticed. And he looks like my grandmother. So.
Yeah, that's not a good argument either. You look like my grandma. I don't know, man. It's odd because I was looking forward to it, man. I did a ton of research. Like I thought a lot about this. I read a lot about the Benatar guy and like a bunch of other people's, you know, views. And yeah, I had good questions that I wanted to ask him too. Like, and he didn't really give us a chance. It's kind of a bummer.
Yeah. Well, we could wrap it up here if you want to. I got to go get my kid from school pretty soon.
Make sure to take care.
Yeah, sorry you didn't get to say much in that debate, but it was fun.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. Galen says, "I'm late. What did I miss?"
Yeah, right.
Everything. Unfortunately,
we'll do another one soon.
Yeah. All right, guys.
Everybody hit subscribe to Conscientious Omnivore. We'll do more debates here soon.
Yeah. Thanks.
See you later.
Thanks, Logan. See you guys, and thanks for everybody for joining. Bye.